Adi, we called it.
Sorry.
Why is it saying that? Okay.
Never mind.
Got it.
Okay.
Should I go to got it? I should say got it. Okay. Got
That's
it.
okay.
Okay. So she did that. And thank God for mother, because mother was pretty much advanced in that era. She was an agnostic. I don't know what she believed in. She never came to a mosque. She never went to any religious place. But because of her, we all got an education. I think if it was not for my mother, and if it was up to my father, we would probably be in Wales, which I don't think would have been a good idea for me. But in any case, going back, they did burn their clothes and join the freedom movement, so-called freedom movement. Father, on the other hand, was completely different. He was born in a little village called Ratnagiri, which is the home of the Apus Alfonso mangoes, wonderful mangoes. And King Thibaw of Burma was actually banished there. But his land was all confiscated by the British. Their law stated that if the male heir was less than 9 years old, all the land could be confiscated when the father died, his father. So, of course, they said there was going to be a compensation, but the compensation was a joke. So he lost everything, and he actually walked to school 7 miles a day, bare feet. So completely different family backgrounds, although they were related, they were distant cousins. And my father came to visit my mother's family, off and on from the village. Mother fell head over heels in love with this handsome man, his dashing daring. And she decided when she was in the final year of medical school to give up her career and eloped with my father. Of course, grandfather slept with a shotgun and swore he would, use it if my father came anywhere near him. So it was a very tragic time because they didn't speak to each other. My grandfather doted on my mother, and they didn't speak to each other till my older sister was born. So that's just a backdrop.
But your mother also lost all of her inheritance and so forth, right?
Oh, yeah, she didn't get anything. She moved to the village, and she stayed there. It was a village that was known for its cobra snakes. I experienced quite a few of them. And it's Alfonso mangoes. So it's become a big city now. It's a thriving city now, like everywhere else. So going on with my life. I was sent to the Convent of Jesus and Mary to be educated. Anyone in those days that wanted to be educated in English or wanted to go to an English medium school had to go to what was called the convent. And of course, I was educated by British and Irish nuns, who I bucked every way I could. It was a total disaster. But I did study there, and I was taught by Irish and British nuns. I was a misfit. I jumped over the fence. I bunked. We call it bunked when we miss school. We skip school as often as I could. I sat in the last row of my class, and the only chore I had was to go and ring the bell every period. That was my biggest chore.
And you got set back because of your grades.
Yes, I flunked 2 years of school. So I was probably the oldest one in my class. I was a complete dodo. But my number one love was sports. I loved badminton, which is not played in this country. In this country, it's just a plastic shuttlecock and outdoor. Badminton is very strenuous sports, and it's an Olympic sport. So it's one of the most strenuous sports, more strenuous than tennis. So I played badminton, I played tennis, and I played what was called netball, which was the women's version of the British basketball. And everyone and all my classmates said, shoot the ball, Murgi, shoot the ball. Murgi means chicken legs, and I had chicken legs.
Okay, we know what to call you from now on. All right.
No, should never have said that. But I loved sports. I did quite well in my sports. And because of that, I got into, which my third class, I mean, I really flunked out. And I had a third class, which is like the lowest grade you can get. But I got into the first class of the best college in Bombay, St. Xavier's College, which was a Jesuit college. So I was led in by the back door and I pursued my sports. And the strange thing I mentioned to you, Jim, I became a straight honors student in college.
And what do you think the reason was? You were such a difference between high school and college.
Yes. And I think the difference was that there was nobody forcing me to do anything. There was no mandatory discipline by nuns. There were 200 kids in a class, so, you know, I was not picked on. There were so many things I could pick my own subjects. I enjoyed my English professor, who was very, very good. I remember the day she came into class and she mentioned Kennedy. Kennedy had just been shot. And I remember so clearly with the tears that she was shedding and how she spoke about it. It just had left an indelible mark on me. So it was a wonderful experience going to college. And as my principal would tell my mother when she visited, if you want to go find Yasmin, go on the tennis court. She's probably with the boys playing tennis. So, you know, it all came together. But I did well in college, and I did get a master's degree, I mean, a bachelor's degree in economics with an honors. So,
and why did you pick economics?
I picked, right, I forget that. I picked economics because I had this friend who was absolutely crazy about John Maynard Keynes. He spoke Keynesian economics to me all the time. And it was invigorating. It was intellectual. And I was quite smitten, to tell you the truth, by John Maynard Keynes. And I said, well, at least I'll get a job if I'm in economics. You know, what am I going to do with English? But I really, really wanted to do journalism. And if I had to do my life all over again, I probably would go into journalism. So anyway, that's what I did. So I went to St. Xavier's, as I said, to the Jesuit college, and I graduated with economics. I remember those years as being some of the most happy years of my life. We went to private parties where, you know, nobody drank at that time. So we took the Coke bottles, crates of Coke bottles, and we dumped them in these swimming pools. They were all private swimming pools that belonged to the Maharajas and the Nawabs and all these kind of people. And we were socializing with their sons. So we would throw these Coke bottles in the pool, and then we would edge the boys to go dive in and get the Coke for us. And, you know, we would dance to the Beatles and to the Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley, of course, was very big at that time. I remember telling my girlfriend who played badminton with me, if you don't hit the shot, you're not going to get this record of Elvis. And she would hit the shot. So, you know, it was a wonderful time, just being able to socialize and get to all these parties and be able to dance and do everything. And at home, you know, father had joined the police, of course. He was the commissioner of police of Bombay. So we lived in these elaborate British police stations. They were called police quarters. They're made of stones. They were just beautiful. High ceilings, lots of space, spiral staircases, and stuff like that. And I remember so clearly, one of my earliest memories is these elaborate mushairas. We call them mushairas. They're actually singing all night parties. And biryani, the rice dish, which the Muslims are famous for, would flow out of the kitchen, and everybody would sit and We invited, father and mother, of course, invited the Pakistani poets, and they would come in and sing these poems all night long until the wee hours of the morning.
Hmm.
So this poetry, we call them shairis, were actually sung, and they were like jazz. They were improvised. So one group would pick up on one theme or one sentence, and then the other group would come back and counter them, and this would go on all night long.
Oh.
And, being educated in the British system, I would be sneaking in and hiding in the foils of my mother's sari, not understanding a damn thing of what they were saying. So I was too much into Shakespeare and everything else. And I wish to God I'd learned a little bit more of these poems, because they were unbelievably beautiful, beautiful. But the music was there, and it was a good time of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So,
You said you were very happy as a child as well.
I was very happy as a child, very, very simple joys. I remember the monsoons meant so much to me. I would just run out during the monsoons, get pelted by the rain, and go to the beach and, stand there and getting soaked in the rain, and people would think I'm crazy, but I totally enjoyed it. I would sit at the lower level of our house. It had a little window that would open out, with my grandmother, and she would tell me stories about her life. Which just seemed so strange to me, even at that time. She was married when she was 9 years old. She finished having all 3 kids when she was about 19 or 20 years old. And of course, her husband, my grandfather, the barrister, brought in a British mistress who lived in the same house as her.
Really?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm told that I have a half sister somewhere. I've never seen her. I've never pursued it, but grandmother would tell me a lot of these stories. It was very interesting, very interesting. And I wish I had recorded some of them now.
Yeah.
But going forward, however, onward, I had to pursue a degree, a graduate degree in the foreign lands. My brother was already in Toronto.
Now, wait a minute. You went to England first.
I went to England for a little while. I lived in London. My sister was she was doing an ECFMG, postdoctorate in London. She was an anesthesiologist. And so I lived in London for a little while, for some time. And then mother and father told me, absolutely, you're not going to America. It's totally corrupt. And they had no idea how corrupt I was. I think I was more corrupt than anybody in America at that time. Not that I was. I mean, I was still simple, and I never drank, I never, whatever. But I had admission to Long Beach, University of California, Long Beach, and I was not allowed to go there. Instead, I was shunted off to Canada, and I shouldn't say shunted off, but there I was with my brother in Toronto.
Yeah.
At that time, I never wore pants, well, I did, but I was still in my sari. I wore the sari more often than not. And anybody that has worn a sari, and you've seen a sari, in Canada, it's freezing cold. And the cold is coming at me from the bottom of my sari up, just like a kilt, like a Scottish kilt.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, I was so cold. I was so cold. I was cold. I was frozen. But I suffered out the winter, and I was invited to a Lions Club meeting in Toronto. I know that that Pierre Elliott Trudeau was there at that meeting. And the next thing I knew is everybody stood up before the meeting and sang "God Save the Queen." And that's when I decided I could not relive this colonization, and I would not live in Canada. I would not live in Canada. I had to leave, had to leave. And of course, where I wanted to go was America. I'd always wanted to come to America. So how was I going to get to America? That was the question. I don't know if any of you remember that 50-cent piece. There was a 50-cent Kennedy coin. Do any of you remember that? Lisa shaking her head. Ted is okay.
About half.
I thought maybe I was out of my mind, but I know that I had that 50-cent coin. I took that coin, I flipped it, north. Heads I would go, tails I would lose, or whatever it is, came out the right way. And I decided, okay, I'm going. So I applied to Temple University in Philadelphia, and I applied to a master's program in economics, again, economics. And I was fortunate enough that I had an assistantship. I got an assistantship there. And I had a very close family friend, very close family friends. He was at the Albert Einstein Medical School doing neurosurgery. And of course, they said, you can come stay with us. So I had a place to live. I had my assistantship, and I had my 50-cent lucky coin. And that's when I left. I came to the United States. And I started my studies in economics in the master's program at Temple University. That's where life completely riveted, completely changed, just as my mother's had. I met this guy, well, I saw him. He was an African-American guy in the same class. He was doing his master's in economics also. Warren Williams was his name. And he was absolutely brilliant, absolutely eloquent. I don't want to compare him with Obama, because Obama came from a different kind of family. Warren was not from that kind of family. He was self-taught, self-educated. Mother was cleaning houses. There was nobody to tutor him. It was all self-educated. So when he spoke, the class was quiet, and I just couldn't resist him. The more he ignored me, the more I went after him. It was meant to be. Warren and I started dating. I don't want to call it dating, but whatever it was, we started seeing each other more and more out of class. And the more I saw him, the more compelled I was to see him and to be close to him, which we did. It took a long time. My parents were not very happy, but being the kind of parents they were, they allowed it. They agreed to it. I mean, my mother told me, I remember that very clearly, are you sure this is what you want? And of course, I was damn sure what I wanted. So that went on, and Warren and I got married in the 70s. It was a complete surprise to us that when Warren, it shouldn't have been, when Warren finished his master's degree, I did not. I was still, trying to get my thesis done. But when Warren finished his master's degree, he was admitted and accepted into a doctorate program in economics at Harvard University. So there we were, this man from the so-called ghetto going to Harvard with a full fellowship. We moved to Cambridge, Massachusetts, Harvard Square, Ellery Street, and it was an incredible experience, just experiencing all the different ideas and the ideology, and being able to walk up the Widener Library and sitting there and roaming the courtyards and meeting all these people and watching the boat races on the Charles River and walking up to Walden Pond and discovering Thoreau. And it just was quite an experience. I had to give up my own studies because one of us had to work. He got a stipend, he got his fellowship, but we need to subsidize it. We had to do more than that. So we went on. But, and I'm fast forwarding in a way, after about 3 years, it became very difficult. Warren was an introvert. He was academically inclined. He could sit for days without talking to anybody and just reading. He read everything, standing up, sitting down, lying down, whatever. He just read. And I got more and more and more alone in a foreign land in the cold. And I think that's what started breaking up our marriage. We did have a child, Raisa, a beautiful child. Raisa was named after Gorbachev's wife, the Russian President Gorbachev. My aunt was a Russian. My uncle married a Russian woman. So she named my daughter Raisa. And our marriage pretty much broke up very soon after Raisa was born. She was probably a year old. And I took my child. Jim, you wanted to say something?
No.
Okay. Took my child and moved to California, San Francisco. Where else? Everybody comes to San Francisco when something happens, I guess. So I came to San Francisco and went on to start a journal. I just started writing because I was so terrified with the idea of divorce. I couldn't even mention the word. I started writing a journal. The journal became short stories. The short stories became the beginning of a novel. And I was very friendly with a thalidomide baby, you know, the babies that were in England at that time that had these protrusions and they were not able to live for longer than a certain amount of time. He was a poet. And he told me about the Iowa Writers Workshop. So I dared to apply. And for whatever reason, I was accepted into the Iowa Writers Workshop. So that's where I went. I went to the Iowa Writers Workshop in Iowa City. And it was an incredible, again, a very, very incredible time of my life. Iowa in the cornfields with the rolling hills, and just the workshop with these writers, these incredible writers, Kurt Vonnegut, John Irving, James Michener, Joseph Heller, I mean, you name it, they were all coming there to give lectures or teaching or something. And it was just talking about writing and literature. It was a very small community and it was very inbred. And that's where I started most of my writing. I would have had the damn thing done.
Did you publish anything from those journals?
I've got 2 extracts published from the novel that is almost complete, Jim, but needs to be edited, needs to be organized, and I don't know when the hell I'll do it, but that's on my list.
You didn't publish anything while you were at the Writers' Workshop, though.
One of them was accepted by Ishmael Reed. It was published by the Oakland Press while I was at the workshop.
Okay.
So the other one was published a little later. And while I was at the Iowa Writers Workshop, to show you how corrupt I was, I fell in love with my professor, Vance Bourgelli, and married him. Vance was a very established writer, and he was discovered by Max Perkins. I don't know if any of you are familiar with, I'm sure you are. Max Perkins was the editor for Scott Fitzgerald, Hemingway, Jim Jones. He was a highly regarded editor. So he discovered Vance when Vance was about 19 years old and just came back from the war and wrote his first novel, The End of My Life, which became quite a hit. And he went on to write several other novels after that, fiction and nonfiction. And Vance and I were total soulmates. I mean, soulmates from the beginning, from whenever it started. It was an incredible time. It was an incredible marriage. We cooked together, we shopped together, we wrote together, we talked together. It was a very, very good marriage.
And you had a lot of parties, as I recall.
Oh God, we had one party after another, at the drop of a pin. We moved to New Orleans because he was the head of the Writers' Workshop in Louisiana State University. And every time we would just decide in the morning, okay, let's have a party. And we would start cooking and there would be 100 people at the party. So we just threw one party after another, after another, after another. Okay. And, you know, we had jazz parties. I remember some of my students that taught at Southern University at that time, where Ellis Marsalis and a lot of the jazz musicians came from there. And we would just invite these graduate students and they would have jazz in the backyard with mimosa trees, and we'd have mimosa drinks with the mimosa, you know, flowers in them, and we'd open up the oysters and have a great time. And I just wanted to show you a quick picture. I don't know if you can see it. How do I show this, Jim? Is it?
You have to move your computer, I guess. I don't like it, but
Yeah, that's the only way you can see it, but
yeah.
okay. Can you see it at all? That's the Esquire magazine.
Esquire.
Yeah, and that's a close.
So they were voted the #1 party giver, by Esquire magazine. So I don't know why you didn't invite me, but anyway.
I didn't know you at that time, Jim.
Oh, that's right.
But we had people like Margaret Atwood. I remember she came to the Mardi Gras, and everybody thought she was going to be such a fuddy-duddy, you know.
Who was this?
Margaret Atwood, The
Oh,
Handmaid's
okay.
Tale.
Right.
Margaret Atwood, the Canadian writer. Oh, she was out there grabbing every bead that fell out of the, from the floats and just having a ball, James Baldwin came. I remember that. And I do remember that he was in tears at one point, and I went up to him and said, "Why are you in tears?" Well, he never said it, but his mother passed away less than a month later, and he passed away about 2 or 3 months later.
Oh.
So we had a really, really, really great time. We danced at in Salzburg at the Rathaus to the waltzes and da 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 da. So, enough of the name dropping. It came to an end in 2010. Vance passed away. He passed away in 2010, right here in this house. And
Well, wait a minute. You didn't get from New Orleans. You didn't leave New Orleans yet.
Oh,
how
okay,
did you
we're
get to
still in New
California?
Orleans. Right. I skipped that. Okay. After New Orleans, I applied for a Fulbright fellowship to go teach in England. And I was lucky enough to get it. So I decided that I was going to retire and I was going to go to England and teach for a couple of years. And Vance said, "Okay, if you're going to go to England, I'm going to retire and I'm going to come to England." So we both went there. We stayed in England for a while. And then we just gave up. We didn't give it up immediately. We still had a house at LSU, not in New Orleans, but in Baton Rouge. But we did move to California, to San Francisco, well, to Marin, actually, because my daughter at that time decided to get married. She was going to get married. I knew the grandchild was going to come, and so I didn't want to be too far away from her. And we moved to San Francisco, to Marin. San Francisco was too cold for me. I saw the sun come up in Marin, and that's where I said, "Okay, this is where I'm
So what year do you think that was, Yasmin?
I moved here in 2009.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it can't be 2009. We've been here about 15 years, 20 years. So it's got to be earlier than that. It's got to be 23, August or something like that. We've been here about 20 years.
Okay, so Vance died here.
Yes, he did.
Oh, okay.
He passed away here.
I thought you said he died in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so now you're here, you're both retired. Okay.
Both retired before he passed away. He was working on his last book, which I still have. I have an unfinished book, which we need to get to and get that done also. But that's my story, folks.
So your daughter's name is what?
Raissa.
R-A-Y?
R-A-I-S-S-A.
R-A-I, okay.
Raissa.
Okay, so.
And by the way, I didn't mention that I have a son with Vance. We have a son who's 39 years old. We discovered that he was autistic when he was 5 years old. And you know about that. And so I am living with my son. He lives with me. I do not want to put him in a home. I'm not ready for it. And it's a challenge, but it takes up a lot of time. It's time consuming.
Yeah.
But I love him to death. He's a wonderful man.
And you said you're getting lots of support here in Marin.
I get financial support. It's the worst place for caregivers. There are just too many old people here, too many disabled people here, and it's very, very, very hard to find caregivers.
Oh.
I'm sure some of you have experienced that. I hope not, but it is difficult. It's a difficult thing. It's a difficult job. But I'm lucky I have two Haitian guys now who do take care of Omar. So I'm very, very, very lucky with that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's see. What else? I guess that's about all. So the first book that Vance wrote, The End of My Life is what it was called, was written in 1947, and it's
Yes.
available now, The End of My Life.
I think it's only available on Amazon, probably, Jim. I don't know if it's available in the bookstores. Maybe it is. I'm not sure.
But probably on Amazon, so that might be interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. His other book, The Man Who Knew Kennedy, was going to be made into a movie with Jack Lemmon, and then Bobby Kennedy got shot, so they scrapped the movie. So, you know, that's what happened. But anyway, so he was quite a character, and he was a wonderful gourmet cook. I mean, an incredible cook, which was much more important to me than his writing books. So
okay, well, I think we'll open it up for questions then.
Yes, I wanted to keep it short because I really thought it'd be nice if I got the questions from you guys. So, you know, I'll open it up.
Unmute yourself, anybody who wants.
Yeah.
Yasmin?
Yes.
Hi. Wonderful listening to you. Thank you. I'd like to know more about your daughter and how you and she are, and I imagine you have a grandchild, all that.
You want to know about them, Cher? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Whatever
Okay.
you have to share.
Yeah. My daughter gets her brains from her father, thank God. She was the vice president of the corporate office of Wells Fargo. And she moved on to Gap. Unfortunately, I wish she had never taken that job because Gap folded and she's just lost her job. So she's looking for another job now. But I'm sure she'll get something. It's a precarious time in her life. My granddaughter went to Groton in Massachusetts, Groton School, and is now pursuing an engineering degree in aeronautical engineering at Boulder, Colorado.
Oh. Okay.
So they're much too brilliant for me. I try to keep the conversation very, my grandchild is just full of ideas. She's just amazing.
How old is she?
She's now 19. She just was born on the 4th of July. So she just turned 19. My daughter was born on Labor Day, and my son was born on Veterans Day. So I consider myself as American as apple pie.
That'll do it. Next question. Sure.
Yes.
Linda.
You return to India very often?
I used to go to India very often, Linda. I went every year while my mom and dad were alive. And at one point, I even went back, which was not so long ago, maybe about 5 years or 6 years ago, with the intention of staying there. I mean, I really thought India is where I would be. Ultimately, that's where I would be. I would come to this country, get my degree, and then go back. But I don't know what it is. I find myself in a way very different from the Indian community. I've spoken that, I think, quite often in respect to the day-to-day living. The Indian community eats Indian food mostly, and not everybody, of course. Mixes with Indian people, listens to Indian music, sees Indian movies, and it's a very different kind of a lifestyle that I find myself getting more and more away from. I still love India. I love my friends dearly over there, but I don't know. I'm in a state of flux, and that's the story, I think, of any immigrant. Any immigrant has this duality they live with, you know, 1 foot here and 1 foot there, and should I go there or should I not go there? How will it be there? How will it be here? And the novel talks a lot about this kind of conflict.
What about the religious aspect of India now? Does that?
the religious aspect has gotten really, really, really bad. When I was growing up, my grandfather, as I mentioned, and my mother participated in that whole freedom movement. The Hindus and the Muslims were together. Gandhi had gotten them together, and they were all together in this movement, anti-British, anti-whatever it is. So I grew up in a culture where I had friends who were Hindus, Christians, Jews, everybody came to our house. Now it has become a whole different movement. I hate to say this, but Modi, with all his red carpet treatment that he's getting in the United States and his France and everywhere else, is completely against the Muslim community. He believes Muslims should go back to Pakistan. And of course, there is no Pakistan. Pakistan is bankrupt now. Their prime minister was almost jailed, almost arrested. Famous cricketer. So Khan, Imran Khan. So it's a very, very different situation now. Very different situation. I hope to God it changes. Some of my friends who are activists are trying very hard to write articles. They're journalists, but they're not making much headway. A lot of censorship. A lot of censorship.
So Muslims are a minority. How much of a minority?
But they're the largest minority. Largest,
Yeah,
very large.
But what percent are Muslim versus Hindu?
I would say about close to 23% or to 26% are Muslims. So it's quite a large minority.
Yeah, but more than half are Hindu. Would that be
Oh,
right?
yeah. Hindu is predominant religion.
Okay.
And you know, in India, if you meet somebody, the first question is not, well, the first question is what's your name? But as soon as you tell them your name, then there's a derivative of what religion are you? You know, immediately. Oh, so are you a Muslim? Are you a Hindu? Are you Christian? That's the first thing.
Yeah.
It's still, that stigma is still there.
So along the, sorry for the next question. I mean,
Yeah.
well, anyway, so you were raised in Catholic schools. So did that mean you had to be Catholic?
I did not have to be a Catholic, but we were heavily indoctrinated. Very heavily. I mean, we were
Converted.
we were gently pushed towards Catholicism. And as I said, my mother was agnostic, so there was no way that was meant to be. That was not going to be in my household. But I remember very clearly, my friend and I used to go to the chapel, and we used to see the Virgin Mary, and we used to see this serpent. And every time we did something wrong, we were told, okay, well, the serpent's going to come get you. So there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of guilt. There was a lot of fear. A lot of fear.
That sounds very Catholic. Okay.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. But, you know, I mean, we took it in our stride. We just weren't anti-nuns or anti anybody, to tell you the truth. We just grew up in a vacuum, you know, not paying attention to too many things.
Just playing tennis.
We played tennis, played badminton, played, you know, netball.
Ted,
But I
you
got whacked very often. I remember Mother Eleonora had that ruler with a felt underneath it. And boy, when I was naughty, she laid on me, you know, so that happened.
Ted, you always have a question. What's your question today? Uh-oh.
Who's asking?
He's frozen. Okay, well.
Is it Norman? Who is it?
No.
Jim? Jim?
What?
Are you asking a question?
Carol
No.
has a question.
Carol has a question.
Okay.
I have a question.
How did it happen that your mother was agnostic growing up in India or Pakistan?
That's a really good question. Yeah.
How did you develop this passion to go abroad so young?
All of us wanted to go abroad. That was a given. Everyone wanted to pursue a master's degree, a graduate degree abroad. And that's still the case. That remains so. So, you know, once you graduate from college, if you have any ambition, you want to go abroad and get a further degree. How did my mother become agnostic? I think because number one, she was highly educated. Number one, two, she came from a family where grandfather was obviously into his own thing, bringing a British mistress in the house and so many other things that he did, being an alcoholic, you know, falling in love with a very, very poverty-stricken man. So many things. I don't know exactly what led to her her being agnostic, and she never said it openly. She allowed us to pursue any religion or to find out. She never stopped anybody. She always had the religious ceremonies in the house. When it's Eid, the Muslim feast, she made sure that we had the dishes and the prayers and everything. But she herself never participated. She
Did you
would
ever,
find some way to excuse herself.
did you ever ask her where God was, or
No, I never had those kind of
questions?
conversations.
Okay.
Never, never.
So how did you end up at our congregation? This is my question.
The first time I came with Catherine Jane, she introduced me to this congregation.
Okay.
And I've never belonged to any congregation. I never thought I would. I never thought I would join any organization. I didn't go back for a number of months or even a year or whatever. But then I decided, okay, well, let me go check it out. And Marcus gave his sermon that day. I don't know if any of you remember about the man who falls over the bridge and the decision has to be made whether to pull him up or not.
Yes.
But boy, I was really taken with that sermon. I just thought that was an incredible sermon. And I thought about that question for so long. And I told him, I said, India, there's no question. You pull the man up, you stand there. You wait till you pull the man up. You know, there's no two ways about it. And then I started thinking more and more about it. And the more I thought about it, the more I came to the congregation. And the more I came, the more I met all you wonderful people. And I don't say that lightly. Very intelligent people and very welcoming people. And I feel very happy there. I am very happy there. It's a beautiful place. It's a place of solace for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I look around and I feel the music. I'm the worst singer in the world, but I feel the music. I feel the chant.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm going to stick with the UU.
Good.
Yay.
So are we.
So say.
I would like to see more diverse people, of course. And I think we're already on our way, right, Anne? I mean, we've already got 3 or 4 people there now, and I think we're making strides there.
That's good.
So, I was gonna.
Ask another question. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go
So
ahead, Linda.
were you and your family affected by the caste system?
By the caste system, no, I don't think we were. I don't think we were. You know, my father was a commissioner of police and he was a big bully. So I don't think anybody would have even tried to talk about, oh, I must tell you, yes, in one way it was true. And it's more religion than caste. My sister, my older sister, the medical doctor, who was a Muslim, she was not a Muslim, she was an atheist, but she decided to marry a Hindu man, which was unheard of at that time. This is going back a number of years, 60 years. She decided to marry a Hindu man. And I remember very clearly that the Maulvis, the Muslim priests, came to my father's office and they threatened my father. They said, if this marriage takes place, there will be some killing.
Oh,
And my father got up from his desk. He was in the police station, took his revolver out of his belt, which was hanging at the back there, and put it in its case and said, if this marriage does not take place, there will be a lot of killing. So that gives you some idea of my father.
And the marriage did take place.
The marriage did take place, and they were married for 64 years.
Ah,
My son-in-law, my
that's
brother-in-law,
interesting. Good
unfortunately.
question.
Oh, here's a picture I wanted to show you, but this was Vance's. I don't know if you could see this at
A
all.
little higher.
Higher.
There.
So this was Vance's 70th birthday party at the Algonquin in New York. And that was
Who is it?
Her husband,
Was that you?
Yes.
her second husband, right? The novelist.
Yeah.
Can't hear you
my
very
son
well.
lost the other picture with everybody there, so
Okay.
it's it. But
Okay. Any more questions?
Yes.
I had one.
Vance's first book was highly, highly, highly praised, but never took off with the public recognition that one would have assumed it would have. What was that period like?
well, I wasn't in his life, as you know. He was much older than me, Jim. We were talking about 1947 or whatever it is. We came back
Yes.
from the war, and so I wasn't there. But you're precisely correct. I remember him saying to me that, you write this book and everybody loves it, and you think you're going to wake up in the morning and the whole world is going to be different because they know who you are, and nothing changes. You're still a nobody.
Yeah.
So it's not that he did not get the recognition. He did. He got a lot of recognition, but didn't launch into the limelight the way a lot of the authors did. But he went on to write a lot of other really reputable books.
Mhm.
And so, he said to me that I wish they had made that one movie. If they had made that one movie, it would have been a whole different thing for me.
I'm sure.
Well, I
that-
think he was highly acknowledged by other writers,
Yes.
but not so much by the public in general. And he wrote the book when he was 19, Doug. So
The first book was when he was 19. But he was acknowledged by other writers. His student was John Irving. He was acknowledged by other young people besides the writers. Yeah, he did pretty well for himself. I know that when we went to bed, he would say something, and I had to always ask him, "Is this fiction or is this real?" Because I never knew whether he was lying to me or telling me the truth or whatever it was. It was
But
a
you were
fascinating.
soulmates. That's interesting. I
We
like
were
that term.
soulmates. We were absolute
Soulmates.
soulmates. Yes, we were.
One more question.
Well, I was going to ask, when you were in New Orleans, what years?
We were there from 1980, I believe. 1980. No, it had to be, yes, it was 1980, in the 80s to 90s. And then we were there much later. We left in 2003. So we were there for a number of years.
Wow.
And we really loved New Orleans.
So I was there
Orleans.
I lived there from 1976 to 1981 and the summer of 81. So we overlapped a little bit.
Oh, wow. And
Wish
you
we'd
were at
known
the
each other.
university, were you?
Me?
Did you-
No.
Okay.
Interesting. I wish we had known each other then, Cher.
Ah, your party sound fun. We had some fun ones too, but
As I said in the little write-up I did, I'm amazed at how many people here have either born or raised or went through Philadelphia. Like Joan and
Right.
it seemed like everybody I interview here. You too, Ted? Oh my. I think half the congregation somehow was in Philadelphia for a while.
Oh, really? I didn't
Seems
know
like
that.
it.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. I'm still an East Coast person, I think.
Oh. So is Jim Finn. He's an East Coast person too.
In what regard are you still an East Coast person?
I think the culture is very different, Jim. So different.
That's Doug, not Jim.
Oh, wait, Doug, is that you? Where?
He's not showing his head. I don't know why he's
Doesn't
not showing
matter.
his head.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
That's
There's,
right
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Memorize
Didn't
this
think
face.
you
Here we
were.
go.
Oh, I was gonna say, I'm an East Coast person, but I wouldn't be welcome back there very much.
Oh,
Why
the
is that?
manager.
But that's another story.
Ah, okay. An interesting story, I'm sure. So anyway, that is my story. I'm not a remarkable person, but I've
Yes, you are.
had the luxury of living a remarkable life, and you know, it's been a journey. It's been a journey, like
Quite
all
a
of
journey.
us.
I
Right.
think you should talk some more to Diana because, you know, she's a Brit.
Yes, we
And,
bonded. Diana
And she
bonded.
has 1 foot in Britain and 1 foot here as well. So, yeah. You two would get along, I think.
Yes, we did bond. We bonded. We
Oh,
spent
good.
yesterday together, and we
Oh,
bonded.
oh,
Yes,
wow. Okay.
yes, yes, yes.
I'm behind the times. And
She's quite critical of the British, so I'm instantly her friend.
Anne, did you want something?
I just wonder if you could say a little bit more about how you're defining an East Coast person.
Yeah.
More depth, more ideas. Well, you know, living in Cambridge, of course, was a whole different. I'm sorry, someone saying something?
No, there's some background noise somewhere.
Okay, okay. So more depth, more lasting friendships,
Mm.
more openness. Here it's such an incredible priority on health, and I guess the East Coast is like that in some ways, but not too much. And I think a discussion of ideas. Well, we lived in Cambridge, so it's a whole different context, but still,
Mhm.
I gravitate towards the East Coast. I love the nature, the physical beauty, the people, the whole 9 yards. I'm really an East Coast person. I'm not a Californian,
But here you are.
but here I am.
Good lad.
Okay, we'll take care of you. Don't worry.
Yeah, you're taking care of me very well. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening to my story.
Thank you
So
for
interesting.
sharing it.
Yes.
Thank you for
Thank
you
sharing
very
your
much.
story.
Very interesting. Life.
Where's Anne? Anne is not around. Is Anne around still?
Oh,
Where are
Anne's
you,
there.
Anne?
In
Anne
the
Carden?
rectangle
Anne, you
next
didn't
to
ask me any questions.
you.
I asked you one.
Okay, okay, all right.
But Joan
know-
didn't. But
I
that's
know
okay.
all the other answers already.
Yeah,
It
okay.
was a wonderful, wonderful talk. You are a remarkable person.
Yes.
See?
Yes.
Thank you.
See,
Thank
I
you.
told you.
Uh,
Okay, let's
Thank
wrap
you.
it up. Thank you, everybody,
Yes.
for coming.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hey, Jim.
Putting it together.
Bye.
Thank you, Jim, for
Bye.
all your help.
Thanks, Jim, and
Bye.
thank you, Yasmin.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
And
So
see you
nice to
Sunday.
get to know you, Yasmin. It really is.
Yes. Thank you, Jim, again, and see you Sunday.
Okay. I'll be there.
Mhm.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.